At number 10, the snow globe supposedly began when Erwin Percy tried to make a brighter light for surgeons. The family story says the Vienna mechanic filled a glass globe with water, added reflective particles, and noticed they drifted like snow. It is a wonderful accident, except Percy was not first. A documented water-filled globe containing a miniature Eiffel Tower and falling particles survives from the 1889 Paris Exposition. That was roughly 11 years before Percy's experiment. His real contribution was developing a longer-lasting floating snow, placing a miniature church inside, and building a successful business around it. So the famous light experiment may explain the modern Viennese globe. It does not explain where snow globes began. At number 9, the Popsicle has one of the strongest accident stories, but it comes with a 19-year gap. Frank Epperson later said that, in 1905, his 11-year-old self left a cup of flavored soda water outside with its stirring stick still inside. Overnight cold froze it around the stick. That childhood memory became the origin story, although no record from 1905 can verify the moment. What is documented comes later. Epperson sold frozen treats at an amusement park, filed a patent in 1923, and received it in 1924 for frozen confectionery held by a handle. He called the treat an Epsicle before Popsicle became the famous name. The freezing may have been luck. Turning that memory into a repeatable product took nearly 2 decades of intention. At number 8, the potato chip was not invented by one furious chef. The familiar story puts George Crumb in an 1853 restaurant, slicing potatoes impossibly thin to punish a customer who kept rejecting them. The customer loved them, and the chip was born. Historians have found no contemporary evidence for that confrontation, and Crumb never claimed it. More importantly, an 1817 cookbook already instructed readers to fry potatoes cut into thin slices or shavings. Similar recipes appeared again before 1853. Crumb was a celebrated cook, and thin Saratoga chips became strongly associated with the restaurant where he worked, so he may have helped popularize them. But the revenge story arrived much later and kept collecting details. The crunch is real. The angry accident is probably advertising quality folklore. At number 7, customers may have popularized the tea bag by using packaging wrong, but they did not invent the idea. Roberta Lawson and Mary McLaren filed a patent in 1901 for an open mesh tea leaf holder designed to sit directly in a cup. Their patent explained the exact advantages: brew one fresh serving, keep loose leaves contained, and avoid wasting a whole pot. Then, around 1908, tea merchant Thomas Sullivan began sending samples in silk pouches. The famous story says customers assumed the pouch belonged in the hot water, and Sullivan copied their mistake. That part is popular but poorly documented. Sullivan helped commercialize the format. His customers may have accelerated it. Either way, a deliberate single-cup pouch was patented years before his supposed accident. Convenience, not confusion, made it last. At number 6, John Walker's match is the rare origin story that really does resemble an accident. In 1826, the English chemist was experimenting with a combustible paste. Some dried on the end of a wooden splint, and when he scraped it across a rough surface, friction ignited it. Walker recognized the usefulness immediately. His surviving sales book records a customer buying friction matches on April 7, 1827. The early version came in a tin with folded sandpaper and produced a violent flame, unpleasant fumes, and sometimes flying sparks, so it was not yet the neat match in your kitchen drawer. Walker chose not to patent it, allowing imitators to improve and profit from the idea. Chance created the first flame. Observation turned a dirty mixing stick into a product. At number 5, the St. Louis World's Fair probably made ice cream cones famous, but it did not give them one clear inventor. The best-known story says that in 1904, Ernest Hamwi saw an ice cream seller run out of dishes, rolled his Zalabia pastry into a cone, and saved the day. The problem is that several fair vendors later told competing versions, and proof for Hamwi's rescue is thin. Edible containers predated the fair. Agnes Marshall published a cornet with cream recipe in 1888, and Italo Marchiani received a 1903 United States patent for a mold that made edible ice cream cups. The fair may have created spontaneous pairings of waffles and ice cream. At number 4, the Corn Flakes accident did not produce corn flakes. The popular account says John and Will Kellogg left cooked wheat sitting too long at their health sanitarium. When rolled, each grain flattened into a flake instead of becoming dough. That may have inspired the process, but the cereal required systematic work. John Harvey Kellogg's 1896 patent describes soaking grain at temperatures chosen to prevent fermentation, thoroughly cooking and partially drying it, rolling it cold, then baking the flakes crisp. It names wheat, oats, barley, and corn as options. The brothers first sold wheat flakes, Will later developed and commercialized the corn product. An overlooked batch may have opened the door. Corn Flakes walked through it after years of experiments, machinery, marketing, and a bitter fight over credit. At number 3, Vaseline came from unwanted oil industry residue, but Robert Chesebrew did not discover it by spilling something. Oil workers were already scraping waxy buildup from equipment and reportedly rubbing it on cuts and burns. Chesebrew noticed the practice, collected the residue, and spent years finding a reliable way to purify it. His 1872 patent describes filtering petroleum residue through bone black and names the resulting material Vaseline. It lists uses ranging from machinery and leather to hair pomade and cream for chapped hands. That is observation followed by deliberate chemistry, not a laboratory mistake. The surprising part is the raw material. The grime that slowed oil machinery became a clean, stable barrier for skin. Chesebrew's achievement was seeing value in industrial waste, then engineering the dirt out of it. At number 2, Percy Spencer's melted candy bar was a lucky clue, not the complete invention of microwave cooking. In 1945, while working with radar magnetrons at Raytheon, Spencer reportedly noticed that candy in his pocket had softened. He tested the effect with other foods, and the popcorn and exploding egg stories followed. But high-frequency energy had heated materials before. Spencer's patent says electromagnetic energy had already been used on food at lower frequencies. His breakthrough was finding that shorter microwave wavelengths could cook efficiently, then concentrating and guiding that energy into a controlled space. Raytheon filed his patent in October 1945, and early commercial radar-range ovens were enormous, expensive machines. The snack in his pocket triggered the question. The countertop appliance came from engineers turning that question into safe, repeatable hardware. At number 1, Ruth Wakefield deserves more credit than the accident story gives her. The myth says the cook ran out of baking chocolate, chopped up a Nestle bar, and expected it to melt through the dough. Instead, pieces remained. But Wakefield described a deliberate goal. Guests at her toll house loved a butterscotch nut cookie, and she wanted to offer something different. She developed a variation with chopped semi-sweet chocolate, then published the Toll House Chocolate Crunch cookie recipe. Nestle printed it and produced ready-made morsels. Chocolate softens in an oven, but it does not dissolve through cookie dough, something an experienced food professional would understand. The cookie was innovative, successful, and apparently planned. Calling it a mistake makes the story cuter while making its inventor look less skilled.